Okay, morning ladies and gentlemen, welcome to week 6 tutorial. Um, Before the tutorial, everyone is asked to go through a past paper, so I'm going to quickly work through a past paper so you guys can get an idea what to expect next week. Thursday, I know you guys are studying maths and ComSci, for those doing ComSci. Um, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this. There are things that are going to change slightly for this year's paper. Output for Prac 6, yes, we'll do that. I'll make a note of that. There's a piece of paper. Okay. Damn it, where'd my pen go? Ah, okay. The joys of working at home. Okay. Um, so it's Prac 6 credit, and then you guys want me to discuss the Prac 6 output. Okay. I'll get back to those after we discuss the past paper. Now, ladies and gentlemen, one thing I want to point out is last year's past paper had 10 marks for general knowledge. Ms. van der Westhuizen and myself have been discussing it. We might reduce it down to 5 marks, as honestly, you guys can Google it. So we're just nervous of that. Okay, so the first section will be a general knowledge of a few marks. How we structure it may change, but it'll still be general knowledge. Be things that we discussed, like every beginning of every lecture, we discussed an individual or a concept, be it types of programming, be it Grace Hopper. We've discussed someone in terms of IT general knowledge. This could have include like what OOP stands for, things that also have been discussed in terms of theory. So the general knowledge question can range, but it's based on the year. So some of these won't make sense to you. Like the Bourbon rolls we haven't discussed yet. That won't work for you guys. Numerous individuals in Sweden have implanted microchips in their hand. What is the name one anticipated benefit of microchipping a human being? Okay, that we have not discussed. And honestly, I don't know why anyone in hell would want to do that. But yeah, so that's a general knowledge and it depends on the year. So just keep that in mind. Then from there, we go to a recursion question. Now, the recursion question is going to be a section of code, and we're going to ask you, in terms of A, B, and C, because this one is A, B, and C, calculate the general value. And last year's one was a multiple choice, and then you had to show the working out. So based on this, which one of these would be the correct one, and then show how you figured that out. Okay, so I'm not sure if we're going to do this multiple choice approach, as I don't see the real benefit in it, besides confusing you slightly. But we will also do more recursion questions next week's tutorial as well. But this is what you can expect, that a question will appear based on a recursion code that we come up with, and it'll ask you to determine in terms of A, B, or C, or X, Y, Z. But it'll ask you to give a value in those terms. But again, next week, Tuesday, we'll do a bit of this as well, so you guys can see a bit more practice of that. From there, you're going to a programming one, or programming snippets, where we give you a small section of code. Okay, so this has got a class, it's got lines of code in module, clean code, so it's got a little bit of a instance variables, it's got an array, it's got a shared subroutine. Then we've got the form code, my code as IT project. We have a bit of code to get a number of modules and call the constructor. Okay, so this is just a skeleton framework of a code. Then we ask questions like, using the redefined code, provide the following. So declare a variable called average lines of code that must be directly accessible by all classes within the IT program inheritance hierarchy. So how would this be possible? This you should know the answer to. How would you create a variable that is accessible to all IT program in the inheritance? What approach would you take with that? We have done it already, but I know you guys are focused on maths and ComSci. And if you want to pull up something, well, you guys make a protector. There we go. Okay, so we make it protected. Yeah, and that's pretty much So we make it a public protected underscore av lines of code as double, and we're done. So it's testing your understanding of inheritance by saying, how can we make it directly accessible in inheritance? Define a utility function that can change a number to 0 if a integer is negative. What is the utility function? How do we define a utility function? Private function, correct. What is another way to do it? There's more than one. Okay, private is the one thing I've discussed. What's another way to make utility method in inheritance? Let's make it a bit more specific. And why discussing that? I thought I'd throw up a meme. Protected, thank you very much. I don't know if you guys agree with this meme or not. I asked a question about the meme I put on the board on the shared screen. Online lectures is like Dora the Explorer. Okay, good to get you guys laughing at least. Okay, so we got agreement on that point. That's just kind of depressing nowadays. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, stressing just one piece of advice for tests and assessments, or tests and assignments coming up. Stressing doesn't help Jack. Okay, I promise you, all your stressing does is make it hard to remember things. Rather, focus on studying. Focus on things you can do. Don't focus on things you can't do. Stressing actually has a backwards effect where it actually makes it very difficult to remember things and helps you. It's more prone to make you forget than anything else. So just be careful about your stress levels. Okay. Question 3. Provide a property method for the instance variable lines of code. Note, an input must be validated to ensure values are not negative. So lines of code is a what? Is it an array? Is it a single type of variable? What is lines of code? Or are we going to play Dora the Explorer this morning with me answering in 10 seconds? Okay, an array integer. Thank you very much. Okay, so it's an array. That means we need a public property line of code, I as integer. Note the input must be validated, so you use the property method you just made, the property method, utility method you just made, and call it inside here. Define a constructor that accepts a single integer parameter that is used to ensure that the line of code is correctly allocated in memory. What does this mean? So define a constructor that accepts a single integer parameter that is used to ensure that the line of code array is correctly allocated in memory. Any ideas what that would be? Okay, it's a constructor A, but what does it mean to be correctly allocated in memory? That's the question. Redim. There we go. Good. You guys know what you're doing. So it's a public sub new, accepting size of array as integer, and you redim lines of code. Okay. Provide the code to call method cleanup. So provide the code to call the method clean code. And clean code is a what type of method? Shared. So how do we call clean code? Do we say mycode.cleancode? I'll give you more than 10 seconds this time. Class name.name of variable, correct. Class name of method in this case, but you're on the right track. So it'll be IT program.cleancode. So it'll be IT program, not object name, be careful of that, class name, there we go, good. IT program.cleancode. And that would be your coding section. It's not hard questions, ladies and gentlemen. It's just testing your knowledge of inheritance, utility methods, property methods, constructors. It's testing you have actually been doing your own code almost. And the last question is actually a fairly straightforward question. It's not something that is tricky. You have to do a UML class diagram. Considering a class called sea creature, which is used in an aquarium like Ushaka Marine in Durban to manage the attractions. So there's a picture of, I'm assuming Ushaka. Been a while since I've been there. So define class sea creature. It must have 2 attributes and 1 appropriate method. Constructors and property methods don't count, so you don't really need to do your property methods and constructors in the semester test. We'll provide explicit instructions on that to save you time. Remember, the test is 40 minutes. We'll give you a buffer time to upload, but you don't want to waste your time doing things that aren't needed. So during the test, you don't need to define constructors and property methods if indicated. We'll put this in the question paper for your guys. Define 2 additional classes that both inherit directly from sea creature. They each must have 2 attributes and 1 appropriate method each. Overriding methods do not count. Be sure to use the correct UML notation. So basically this question 4 is draw 3 class diagrams, 1 base class sea creature, 2 derived class or child classes that connect to sea creature. So off the top of your heads, what 2 derived classes can inherit from sea creature? Let's see what you guys can think of. Fish and shark, correct. Fish is a sea creature, shark is a sea creature. Types of fish, correct. Okay. Now all that's left is to draw the correct UML diagrams. Okay, so the semester test for informatics 1B is not that bad. It's just testing your understanding of the work we've done so far. Okay, I think the roughest part might be the recursion, but we'll cover this next week, Tuesday, in the TUT to get you guys ready in time, or to get you guys not up to speed, but refreshed in terms of the recursion. Because I know it's not going to be the thing first thing on your mind right now, as you have maths and comp sci, and I keep saying that, which is stressing you out, I know. But again, ladies and gentlemen, from past experience, stressing doesn't help. The more you stress during a test, the more chances of forgetting your information. So just rather calm down during the test, try to relax, and focus on answering what you can. Any questions about the past paper? I have put up 2018s as well. I'll put up 2017s if you guys want. I have no issue. They're normally available in the library anyway. Okay. Okay. You guys a bit more comfortable with the past paper now? Better, okay. But again, we'll go through it next week, Tuesday as well, in preparation for Thursday. Okay, good to hear. Okay, let's have a look at today's tutorial, as it might help with a little bit with the practical, and then we'll discuss the practical as well. Okay, so no, that isn't the one I wanted. What is that one? There we go. So there's actually not much to today's tutorial. It's more of a work through approach. So you've been asked to create a program for UJ Zoo, allowing them to manage all sorts of aspects of the zoo. For the purpose of the tutorial, we'll focus on costs of keeping various animals. Costs include food, health, habitat expenses. Your program must handle 3 different types of animals, excluding animals. Okay. So basically, the question is very open-ended, so we can try to discuss as much of the more of the idea of inheritance than like specific points of inheritance. So from here, what would our base case be? Okay, our base case is going to be animals. That's, I think, clear enough. Good. Okay, so what could our potential derived or child classes be? Fish, that's an animal, correct? What else? Remember, we need three different mammals, birds, cows. Cows at a zoo? Chicken? Come on. Okay, chicken is food at the zoo, I know that. Ants, okay, yeah, it depends on the ants. Reptiles, elephants. Okay, based on your guys' responses, you've given me 2 different, and that was the end of the slides, by the way. You've given me 2 different ways of showing you aspects of inheritance. Okay, so I think we'll do that as well. So I'm gonna add another slide. Get rid of that. I'm going to discuss the aspect not of inheritance per se, but you got the 3 responses I've seen. I've seen something that I need to discuss. Maybe if we get a chance, I'll discuss it in class as well. But some of you mentioned reptiles and mammals. Now that's correct. That's actually spot on. And so are the people that said ants, snake, elephant, birds. Those are all correct. But specifically, and mammals and reptiles has got my interest because they open up for another level of inheritance. Okay, so I'll also insert a table, and so I'm not going to do the internal aspects of it. I just want to do the idea first. Okay, we have animal. Now, of course, it's going to have attributes and that, but we'll get to that. I'm not going to first jump into the attributes because I want to first explain the idea that you guys have presented to me. Because it is an important, I think, to understand as well with inheritance. Okay? Mammals or mammal and reptiles. I'm going to trust your spelling. My spelling sucks. I chose IT because I thought I'd never have to spell. Insects, there's also a type. Okay, now let me just, we can do insects as well. Yeah. Trust me, I didn't think when I picked IT, I'd be in a situation when I was a lecturer or I'd be typing out papers. Spelling sucks. You have no idea. My spelling and grammar is horrendous. You'd never think I finished a master's. Okay, so we got those. Now I just want to make sure, what is the symbol to represent inheritance? Arrow, 100%. Good, good, good. I'm happy to see that. Where does the arrow connect though? Base class, good. Okay, from offspring to the base class. So the arrow will be connected to animal. So all of these will have It's a bit small, but let's try to see if we can get a better one. That'll work. Okay. Not the best drawn, but it does represent a job. So we have an arrow connecting to, no, damn it. None. Okay. So the arrowhead connects to animals. Everyone okay with that? Now, this is your what is known as a multi-layer inheritance, or a multi-tier, or is it multi-tier? Is that the right term? Okay. So from mammal, I saw we had elephant, elephant, lion. That's another one we can use. Lion. We have snake. And all of these will then connect to the corresponding parent clause. Okay. So keep in mind with inheritance, it's not limited to just one layer of inheritance. This can go down a rabbit hole very quickly in terms of the amount of inheritance that can actually exist. And you could break it into herbivores and carnivores, yes. But I'd break that here. Oh, actually, no. Herbivores and carnivores, I'd make like a Boolean method inside mammals. Else it gets very complicated. Okay, but is everyone okay with what I've done here? An elephant is an animal, but an elephant is also a mammal, which is an animal. Lion is a mammal, which is an animal. Snake is a reptile, which is an animal. So this is your parent, your essentially elephant's base class is mammal. Elephant's grandfather class is animal. Snake is a reptile, but snake is also an animal. Keep that in mind. But snake's base class is reptiles or reptile. Let's keep it with singular. When you name your class, you generally name it a single term. No, the animal names aren't at. No, these are just the name of the classes. They're still attributes to follow. Okay, we'll get to those in a minute. Someone's jumping the gun into next week's work. I see someone's jumping the gun into polymorphism. So can we make an array of animals? Technically, but that we're going to cover next week when we do polymorphism. Or actually, I think we'll do polymorphism after your semester test, so it doesn't confuse you guys too much. But we're going to get to the point where we can make an array of animals, yes. So there isn't only one parent class. Yes and no. Lion's parent class is mammal, but mammal's parent class is animal. So there is only one parent class per class. Lion doesn't inherit directly from animal. Lion inherits from mammal. Mammal, on the other hand, inherits from animal. So there is only one parent class per derived class. 3 generations, correct. So we have generation 1, well, the base, the first layer, second layer. So it is essentially 3 generations of inheritance, yes. Could you have multiple parent classes? No, not in VB. Other languages does support that ability, but in VB we don't support that ability. So we need to stick to single inheritance, as multi-inheritance does get it very confusing very quickly. First is to understand inheritance, then you can start messing around with other types of inheritance. How many classes are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 classes. Thank you. Okay, there's 7 respective classes here. So if I go into animal and I say an animal has a name, then all of these classes will have a name immediately. Remember that. I haven't defined attributes yet. I've just defined the name of the classes. I haven't defined methods. Remember, with inheritance, whatever I give the parent class, all the derived classes obtain that ability or obtain that functionality. So anything I give to animal. Now, this is a good example of abstract as well, which ties into yesterday's lecture, which I'm going to actually use now. Let's look at animal by itself. We'll do some code implementation in a few minutes, but let's look at animal. What attributes would an animal have in the case of the zoo? Okay, let's just focus on the zoo. Let's not focus in animals in general. So what attributes would an animal have? Instance variables. Attributes are the same. They're referring to the same thing there. Give me some attributes of an animal. Name. Food. Type. Ooh. String. Size. Food. Cost of food. Size. So the double. Okay, weight. Weight and size are pretty much the same thing. We can do gender. Maintenance cost, I think that's something we can calculate, not really a given value. Let's go with the char. Okay. Now let's do, someone's mentioned maintenance cost. So remember, one of the goals is to create there's a char. I'll explain what a char is. A char is a single character. Okay. So open up VB while it's doing this, and let me. So M or F, yeah, male or female. That's our animal. Okay, it doesn't have property methods or constructives. We're not too concerned about that. While you're making the attributes private, default, I always make the attributes private. Only other option is protected, but that generally we don't want to, by default, make everything protected. Remember, it's important to keep things secure and the level of abstraction correct. It doesn't mean that we have inheritance, everything must become protected. We still have private attributes. So unless there's a valid reason to have access to the instance variable directly, you can still keep them private. It's actually better to keep it private, as there's less possibilities of information being leaked. Okay, it's important to build security into your system from the ground up, not adding afterwards. Okay, I'm sure you guys have heard of the massive security leak in the country. What happened recently? Yeah. So someone does know of it. For those who don't know, I think I stand to be corrected. I think 20 or 24 million records, our personal information have been leaked from a credit company. So some of your information or some of your parents' information, hell, probably my information, has been provided to people. Okay, yeah, I'm asking because we are doing inheritance and the types of animals will have the attributes. Correct, they'll have the attributes, but do we want them to have direct access or do you want to have access to the property methods? Remember, we still have property methods. So a mammal can access through the property method, but it can't access the name directly. That's something you got to make a decision on when you're programming, unless specifically indicated in the question. It's generally something you must keep in mind. Do I make it public or private or protected? Protected means anything that inherits has access. Okay. So we've got to keep that in mind and not always make everything protected. Some things still stay private, and we can use the property methods to have direct access to the information. So it's not something that we automatically make everything protected. It's more of a fact that, okay, excuse me, we can have protected, but we still want to keep most things private. Could you put animal type as an attribute? What do you mean by animal type as attribute? What would you refer to animal as animal type? Okay, that's the nice thing about objects. They know what they are. So if I ask a mammal what it is, it knows it's a mammal. It knows it's actually of type mammal. So that's already built into the code. What we haven't told you in class, and I'll have to include in the next lecture, is there is another class to inherit from. Okay. This is specific to VB and most OOP languages. Okay, I'll get back to the question now. I'll see there's a question that come up in chat. Any idea what this class would be that I'm talking about now? Anyone want to guess? There is one more class above animal. Not zoo. Zoo would make composition. This is specific to programming, not the idea. Okay. Form actually inherits thing. There's a class known as object. Okay. Everything inherits from object. So within most object-oriented programming languages, there is this base, the main main class called object. It's a base class to every single class that exists. So technically there is one layer above animal. And inside that is a function called getType. So to answer the question earlier about the getting the type, it's already done inside this object. Okay, so there is one layer above. So this is the third generation beyond object. Okay, VB has it, Java has it, most languages have it. You don't know about it because it's done by default. It's already in the code in the background, but it's there. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Have you ever, I don't know if you guys have noticed this before or not. Let's create a practical so you guys can see it. Let's see. if there's no validation, can we just get access to the instance variable by making it protected? I still don't agree with that idea. I know what you're trying to say, that why go through the property method if we can just make it protected. Problem is you don't know where your code's going to go, so you want to try and keep it as secure as possible. So don't just make it protected for the sake of it. Try and make sure that your code is structured in the correct manner. Okay, so I'm going to make animal.bb. Okay, I will discuss this in class on tomorrow as well. Okay, now let's go and make, so you guys can see that I'm making up this base class object. Have you ever noticed that there's always equals, get hash, get type, and toString? Let me just zoom in. Even though there are no methods inside the class as is, it has these 4 methods. Okay, these 4 methods are coming from object. And the question about the type, it's there. Get type returns the type of the current instance variable. So it'll actually return mammal. Okay, so there is that. I know I've got off topic, but it is important to understand that the inheritance, there is another layer to it. Okay, that there is one layer above what you guys are aware of as well. That there is actually animal and on top, because technically what happens behind the scene is this. Everything inherits object. Yeah, it's just there by default. We don't need to type it in. Okay, so getting back to this. Is everyone okay with what animal has? And the aspect of protected and private, it's important to keep in mind that you don't want to make everything protected or public, protected, and private. You don't want to make everything protected. It does open up your code to vulnerabilities. As you can always inherit the class and have direct access as well. So it's important to keep in mind you don't want to make everything protected, as it does open the code to vulnerabilities in the way it's developed. Okay, as again, it's important to build up your code with security in mind. That's why you rather go everything private and open what you need. It's the same idea as a firewall, I guess. Okay, everyone okay with the aspect why these are private? Okay, there are going to be instance variable or property methods. It's just space limitations on the page at least. But is everyone okay that this is an animal class? Okay. So that means that every mammal, reptile, insect will have these methods and these instance variables already built into it. Remember that. That's the point of inheritance. Inheritance means I don't need to declare these again. They exist already. They are part of the classes already. So we don't need to go and do it again. It is already there. I can stay there, I guess. So in mammal, let's take mammal now. Mammal, you wouldn't do this. And this is something you would not do. You would not have name inside mammal. Why wouldn't you? This has got nothing to do with overriding. This is just normal variables. It's inherited, correct. It already inherits it, so we don't need it. Good, good. So you guys understand the aspect that it already exists inside animal. A mammal inherits from animal, so it already has that. So remember, that's the point of inheritance. We don't need to duplicate attributes. We don't need to duplicate methods. Anytime we have the same method is when. When do we have the same method? So when do we have this example? Overriding? No. Overriding. Not extending. Actually, no. Extending would count. Yeah. Because extending is partly overriding. So as soon as we have the same method in a inherited class, it means we are overriding the method. Okay. Everyone understand that point? It seems to understand that point correct. That's fantastic to see at least. Okay. Again, if someone's watching the video, the recording afterwards, and you're getting confused by what you're discussing, please post a comment in YouTube chat, or post a comment in Discord so we can address it. It doesn't help watching the videos and you guys are getting confused by the videos. Rather ask questions so we can solve the problems before it becomes a major issue. As I only can actually answer questions of the people that are attending. So if you have comments in the recording, please post comments or post in Discord, your choice. Everyone keeping up with me so far? Ladies and gentlemen, if you not say so, no one will, I won't make fun of you, I'll just help you with the question. Yeah, it seems like the ones that are responding are happy. I don't know about the ones that aren't responding. I unfortunately cannot see you, so I don't know if you got a blank stare on your face or not. Okay, so as long as a calculation is different from a derived class, can a function be overridden? If they're the same, can we just inherit it? Correct. If the calculation is exactly the same, we just inherit it. But if it changes, we override it and we change it. So that is the correct way of thinking. If the calculation is already correct and we don't need to modify it, we just leave it. We inherit the calculation. But if the calculation changes between each class, we override it. That's the correct way of thinking. Okay, that's definitely the correct way of thinking with this. So if the calculation cost between animal and mammal was the same, but it changed an elephant, elephant would override it. S I have no idea what that means. SBW code. I can show you in the code. Yeah, I can try at least. Craving code. Okay. So problem is coding always takes up a lot of time and then we don't actually get to show you guys much. So that's why we don't always jump straight into the code. Because a lot of this is understanding the principal idea of the code and then working from there. Ah, thank you for the, did not know that. Dad would probably have known that. As he actually does speak Xhosa. Yeah. So there's our instance variables. Okay, I'm gonna make it a bit more visible. Now, you would make your property methods. I know some of you don't see the benefit of having these entirely, but I promise you it is a very useful way of controlling the flow of information. IT is about data and manipulating data, calculations, determining, etc. Controlling the flow is essential. How things are set, how things are validated, how things are obtained is essential. Okay, next year, those who are doing mainstream will switch to going to Informatics 2, and you guys will do databases. Their data is even more important. For those who are doing extended, you'll do ComSci. Just don't get too bored as you do this very similar things again, and then you'll switch into second year normal. But with everything in code, it's important to build, again, I keep saying it, but the security from the base up. You can't add security after you've coded something. Okay, it's extremely difficult and tends to break the project. So security can't be something you think about after you develop a project. It's got to be something you think about while developing the project. And remember, what is the principal ideas of OOP in terms of abstraction and encapsulation? Can anyone tell me one of the main things of abstraction? Control of access also. Only show what's needed. There we go. Remember, we only want people to see what they need to see. And that goes for inheritance as well. We don't want to show and overexpose everything. Okay, and then you'll have a public override. Let's do it abstract. Must override. Function maintenance. Maintain cost. So I see you putting all the attributes in the base class, so all other three classes will have some attributes. Correct, all other classes will have attributes, but they'll have additional attributes. So this is a, okay, why is this complaining? Let's see if you guys can remember yesterday's lecture. I've made this must override, so why is this now complaining? I'll come back to your question, don't worry. It's not something I'm gonna forget. Okay, understood. Must inherit, fantastic. Must inherit. Okay, this makes it abstract. Because, Lejeune, can you tell me how to calculate maintenance cost? Okay. No. Okay. How do we, based on this, how do we determine maintenance cost? Don't know yet. Not sure. we're leaving it up to the next person, put it that way. Okay, so abstract classes are useful in the sense that we can define methods that need to be created. We can provide base skeleton for the next class, and it can then add on to it. Now, what is important, and is especially important, that you guys can now see it in a diagram as well, like this. I just want to save this as, so I don't lose it. Okay. Not always, but I'll come back to that question now. With this structure, what is going on as we go down the inheritance? What's going on as we step down each inheritance layer or each generation? Advancing, we're specializing, getting more specific. Good, 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 good. Those are exactly what I want to hear. You're advancing, you're specializing, you're getting more specific. So if we look at a mammal, what is different from a mammal than an animal? What defines a mammal over an animal? Warm-blooded. Mammals, yeah, mammals are all warm-blooded. Correct. Okay. Breaking up into simpler pieces, correct. That's also the way to think about it. Now, what happens, going back to your one question about animal, the naming and that, is with inheritance, when I go to mammal, also later on, notice I'm right-clicking on tutorial 6, the name of the project, when I'm adding. I was just pointing out some of the mistakes assistants have mentioned to me. If I go to mammal, okay, we inherit animal. And now that's something very interesting about especially VB. Thanks to the Visual Studio's environment, it automatically provides all must inherit functions in the code. So it automatically says, okay, you need to go and do this work. Since it wasn't done in your parent class, you need to do the work. So we automatically push it to the derived or base or the child class. Okay. Now, remember, the benefit of using inheritance is all animals have name, food type, cost of food, size, gender. We don't need to go and redefine those, but we will go and define things like something types of food they eat. That's kind of done here. So we have types of food. We have types of food here. So that we've got. So a mammal, we can say warm-blooded are good. I think that's a bit better, the blood temperature or body temperature. Double. Okay, going back, leg count. But one insects also have legs. But do all animals have legs? No. No, 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 no. Okay, so we can do leg count. Yeah. Skin, fur, etc. Yeah, okay, we can add a lot to it, but does everyone get the idea? We don't go and re-add total number of mammals. That's something else. So you only make the unknown calculations must override, and other methods you can make override. Not really. You make the unknowns override, must override, correct? you make the ones that you want a person to be able to change override. Some you don't want a person to change. Okay, can we have it put in the base class a, can you put in the base class in a, okay, we're getting off topic. Total mammals can be a shared variable, yes. The number of legs, you could put it in here. Something else, okay, we're getting off topic, but let's just focus on one thing at a time. Okay. Something else you can do with inheritance is we can have protected function validate integer. If v less than 0, I'm going to borrow, I guess the right term is to borrow something from one of my students showed me. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm creating a protected function, a validate integer. I don't know what the hell the function term word we came to. You can do that. I'm just reading the question here. Is it a good idea to have an instance variable that other derived classes can return 0 on? Yes, it's not a bad idea. There's nothing wrong with it. It just depends on how it's used. What I'm also trying to show within inheritance, we also can provide validation in our base class and use it in our derived classes. So here we would have a public property body temp as int double. Okay. Let's just go and make this a double as well. Double, double, double. So here we would go and say get return body temp equals validate valid double value. So we also can inherit our protected validation method. So you can validate values and then pass them through, and instead of having to declare them in every single class, have it in our base class, and then it automatically is passed through all the derived classes as long as it's protected. Okay, that's a more usable, more applicable use for protector generally by sharing functionality in the other classes, then just going and making everything here protected. Remember, you only make protected what you need to make protected. Let me just catch up with the chats. Why is a validating integer in our base class? The reason it's in our base class is that I don't have to keep doing it again and again and again. So remember, with what we've done, since I've put a validate method in animal in our base class, then every single class that inherits from it, mammal, reptile, insect, elephant, lion, snake, they all inherit that validation method. Whether they use it or not is up to those classes, but they inherit that functionality. So it's something that is built into the code. So if they need to validate, they have the ability to validate. Okay, so the user won't enter negative values. So basically, we do calculations that must override in the derived classes. Okay, so again, The must override is when we don't know how to do something. Okay, it's when the calculation isn't known to us. So when we have an animal, we don't really know how to calculate the maintenance cost because it'll depend on the type of animal. Mammal, reptile, insect, etc. They may have different calculations. So it's must override here. But it is slowly, as we move down the classes, as we move down each layer, we understand more information, we specialize. So we get a better understanding of each class. That means we can form a calculation. So we can determine a calculation maybe in mammal. Or maybe we can't do it in mammal and we have to do it in elephant. Okay? That's also a possibility. In that situation, this one I need to see if this is still possible or if they've changed something. Just okay, let's try something. I want to go and make an elephant. I want to see if I understand this correctly, as it seems to have changed over the last year. As normally you would declare this must override again, but I think it's now changed that you don't call it unless you change it. Okay. No, not animal, mammal. Okay, there we go. So if I make mammal abstract as well, because I still don't know how to calculate cost, when I get to elephant, I can then calculate the cost because then I know how to calculate the cost for an elephant. An elephant's a more concrete object compared to a mammal. Mammal is still a very obscure or very general term in terms of classes as well. So here we then can do the calculation because we'll know elephant eats this type of food, it costs so much, the weight, the amount of food it needs to eat per kilo, etc. There's more details that we can add to allow the calculation to be properly done. I'm also keeping track of time so we can discuss practical 6, as I know there are the 2 questions that are still outstanding from practical 6. But does this make sense, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of having an abstract again? Okay, so how we use abstract and how we use must override, must inherit, etc. depends on what we're trying to achieve and what we know. Classes are very broad aspect to design. So an animal will have a function called move. How it moves, none of us really know. How it eats, no one knows. You can't say, I know exactly how an animal eats, because what type of animal are you referring to? So as we move down, even when it comes to a mammal, we can have the move function, but you're still not sure how it eats. I'll explain the validation again. We're not sure how it does something. So maybe only when we get to elephant do we know how it moves and how it eats. So there we can start to provide functionality. But we have the build up to it because remember, there's more than one type of mammal. We have a lion, an elephant, a dog, a cat, a chicken. And chicken's a mammal, yes, I think. Because I didn't implement maintenance cost. I made this must inherit because I didn't do maintenance cost. If you look at the code, there is no maintenance cost here. So I didn't complete the code. So if I don't complete the code, I have to make it a must inherit. Okay, the validation function I'll go back to. So if you look at animal again, we have a must override here for calculate maintenance cost. But in mammal, I don't do maintenance cost. So I'm still missing a part of functionality. So this is in the concrete class. This is an abstract class. The validation, all the validation is doing is checking if it's -1. If it's negative, it times it by -1 and makes it positive. So if I enter -3, it times it by -1 and makes it 3. It just reverses a negative into a positive, and if it is positive, it gives you back a positive. I am borrowing that logic from one of my students I mark on a Saturday. Oh, no, Saturday, Friday afternoon. So basically, abstract classes are incomplete calculations, which will be calculated in a derived class as we go deeper. Correct. That's one way of looking at it. Abstract classes are incomplete classes. Okay, so they are designed to be, the idea behind abstract classes is they're incomplete because we don't have a proper understanding as of yet. But we have a base understanding of certain aspects. So we know it's got name, food type, food cost, size, gender. That's kind of generic to an animal. Okay, but how it moves and how it does things, that we don't know. So that'll be done in the other classes. Okay. Now that's a good question. What is the difference between abstract classes and override? Override gives us the function to change something. Abstract forces the change. An abstract method, let me be specific. Abstract class is something else. An abstract method, which is this. This is an abstract method. An abstract method forces the derived class to do the calculation. Overriding, or having that's overridable, means that we can change it, but it has some calculation. How to illustrate this here? This is actually difficult in this question. Let's think of something. So we could have a public override sub, screw it, example, okay, does something. I don't have time to try and figure out something right now. I need to also explain part of Practical 6 to you. So an overridable means I have it, it exists, okay? But I'm giving the ability to my base class, say, this is so stops at morning. I can potentially say public overrides sub example. I have the potential here to change how it works, but I don't have to. So you need to understand the difference between making something overridable and making something abstract in terms of an abstract method. An abstract method means it must be done. An overridable means it can be changed. An abstract class, however, is something different altogether. An abstract class is an incomplete class or a class that we don't create objects of. Remember, I cannot do this. Some of you might have saw it earlier. I can't do this anymore in the code. The program won't allow me to create an object of type animal because why? Why won't it allow me to create an animal object, specifically an animal object? Why doesn't it allow me to create an animal object? It's an abstract class. It's an incomplete class. We've made it abstract to make sure we can't create objects. Okay, so abstract classes we cannot create objects of. So be very clear on the understanding. An abstract class and abstract method are different things. I can have an abstract class without having an abstract method. Okay, I can have a must inherit class, an abstract class, and have no must inherit. Or must override, sorry, must override. But as soon as I have a must override, it must become abstract. This is the reverse. If I have a must override function, it becomes an abstract class. An abstract class doesn't necessarily have to have a must override function. And this will become clearer as we move forward. Okay, as you do more practice, but I know you guys aren't focusing completely on this right now, as the back of your minds is maths. And we are running out of time. So let's talk about practical 6. If anyone's got any other questions, ask them quickly. Just one update for practical 6. There's no interface class. We took that away. Okay. So let me go back up the chat. Hold on. I'm just trying to find your messages earlier about practical 6. On prac 6, when is the credit card interest calculated? Okay. Is check balance shared? Okay. Firstly, what's that base class, ladies and gentlemen? In prac 6, what's okay? Account. But is account mentioned in the code or in the question? Good. Okay, so you guys understand that you have to define account yourself. Okay, we must adjust that as well. So we need to define account. So account will have account number, and that's about it. We'll have a constructor. Now, the questions that are specifically asked when credit card, when will calculate interest occur? Now, a lot of you are asking, what do you display? And that's actually quite important. What do you display? Is there anything you have to specifically display? And the answer is no. If you look at the code, there is no indication of exactly what needs to be displayed. Okay, but we need to see that these things work. So we need the ability to display something that allows us to check it is working. So when I do, say, a debit or a credit, or I do a deposit refund, or I do a withdrawal, I can see that that's affecting the account. So depending on what account I've created, I need the ability to see account is being affected. So you would most likely display check balance on a constant basis. Every time you run something, you would say check balance to see the calculation has actually occurred. So it's not a matter of what is displayed. We need to see that you guys can run these functions, that you can invoke the different functions. The focus of the practicals aren't on what's being displayed, but the focus is on, can you create inheritance and can you connect inheritance correctly? So that's the thing you've got to look at this prac 6 is about. It's not focusing on what is being outputted. The focus isn't on the display. The focus is on the inheritance. Are you creating the inheritance correctly? Are you creating the methods correctly? Are you creating the functions, subroutines correctly? And then can you call them in the class? What you display is almost up to you in terms of that, but you would have something to display that the debit, the credit actually does work. So you would display the debit or credit amounts in a text box and show the check balance. So you can see, yes, this is the system as it's moving forward. If that makes sense, ladies and gentlemen. Can you make your own interest rate? Um, hmm. Now I'm looking at fixed deposit and I'm looking at credit card as well. They both have interest rate or interest. Yeah, you don't have to define your own interest. Yeah. How do you make the balance continue being subtracted and modified like it says initial 200, then you debit, deposit, withdraw? Buttons. Wait, let me rephrase that question, or let me redo that question because I'm not exactly sure. How do you make the balance continue being subtracted and modified like, let's say, initially 200, then you debit and withdraw? Debit, deposit, and withdraw. So you would have a button for debit, deposit for each one, press it, and then show the calculations. That's the only way I could think of doing it right now. Think about when you go to an ATM. You put your card in, you enter your PIN, then it gives you access. Um, yeah, lots of buttons. I know. So you'd have a set of buttons for a check card, you have a set of buttons for a fixed deposit, you have a set of buttons for a credit card, depending on what account you're working with. Debit and withdraw. Not really. Debit subtracts an amount from the balance. Withdrawal checks the balance and subtracts the amount from the balance as long as the balance will not be reduced to below zero. If so, a warning message is issued. So the functionality is not the same. Can you use radio buttons if you know how to do them? Yeah. No, not each class doesn't have two attributes. Or depending on your defining the classes. They only have two attributes, so account number and balance, or interest, balance interest, or balance limit. That's what the table says, yes. But remember, you have your base class, which has what? What attribute would your base class have? Account number. So the other classes would have balance, balance interest, and balance limit. Okay. Can you add your own attributes? No. The restrictions, you can't actually just add attributes as you'd like. Okay. So no, there is output, but you have to output. There's no specific output, but you need to show that the methods are working. The question doesn't specify a specific output, but you got to show that your methods, when you invoke or call the methods, it actually does work. So can a person have 4 check accounts at once? It doesn't really require you to do that. It does require that you can create a check, a fixed deposit, or a credit card. So a person could have one of each, yes, but not. I'm not going with the fact that a person will have 4 check cards now. So we should show a text box that will show the end balance. Will it show the end balance and all the things you've done? Yes. You're not going to have several check balance buttons. You'd have a button for like debit and credit, and that would invoke a check balance nonetheless. You're not going to have like 30 check balance buttons, no. You'd have maybe one check balance button and just invokes it all the time. Remember, the point of having methods is you can just invoke them without, you don't need a button to invoke the method. You can just invoke the method after the person debits or withdraws. Okay. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen, while we're on this? Hopefully I made practical 6 a bit clearer for you guys. I don't see the point of the grid. You can use a, do you guys know how to use a multi-line text box? What a good. Why weren't these done last semester? Okay. Thankfully it's easy to quite use. I know list box now. List boxes are pain because those are actual lists. Form. Tools, view. Toolbox. Okay. Text box, text box, text box. A multi-line text box is a text box. Okay. It's just that you guys have never bothered to look at something. Okay, I just need to zoom in a bit. Hopefully you guys are seeing the same thing I'm looking at. You see this little black arrow here? Where my mouse is pointing towards. Click on it, and you say multi-line. Okay, it is in the properties, but the easiest option is just to go there and multi-line. You can click on it and go to properties and look for multi-line there. But the easiest option is just to click on the black arrow and click on multi-line. Then you notice your text, the number of dots on your text box increases. You notice there's only 2 ways to increase the size, right? That way and that way. The second I go multi-line, you notice there's now 6, or actually no, 8. So we can do that. So there's our multi-line text box. By doing that, we can have multiple lines and actually show, and then displaying, you display the same way you have been. txt.display.text, or txt, whatever the name of the text box is, .display. Only difference is you're going to be using a lot of environment.newline. Also, you'll be using something like this. Let me not leave you guys completely in the lurch there. Display. Txt display dot text. Okay, so I'm saying join example with add to existing. Add to existing. So if we go and run this code, every time I press the button, it takes what is already in the text box and adds a new line, and then new line. Only problem is I don't have a scroll bar, so be careful of that. I haven't added the scroll bar on. For a scroll bar, you go to scroll bars and vertical. So now, if I exceed the text box size, I get a scroll bar. So to add the scroll bar again, you go look at properties, you look for scroll bar, you activate vertical, and that'll give you the vertical one going down here. We don't need the horizontal, but the code that I'm running is saying that take whatever is in the text box and add this to it. So this is same as plus equals. I am then adding on and displaying more, and I'm going environment.new line to skip to the next line. So this will allow multiple things to be displayed every time you press the button. Hopefully that'll help with your displaying problems. Okay, multi-line text box, what it does is allows for multiple lines to be displayed. So not just a single line of information, but it's normally only for outputting, not for inputting. You're not going to use it for inputting this semester. Okay, a multi-line text box is normally just for output. Okay, the tutorial is rounding down its time. So any other questions, please ask it quick. I don't want to keep this going on too long as I don't want the recording to be too excessive. We've got a few more minutes before the session's actually finished, but hopefully I've given you, yeah, you can use environment.newline or VBCRLF. Preferably, I would say environment.newline as it's more language neutral or operating system neutral. It's a more appropriate way of doing it nowadays instead of the VBCRLF, as that is a heyday from the original VB language. Before it was VB.net. But either one will work. We won't really complain much. Okay. There's about 5 minutes left of the session. So I'll still be on if you have any questions. But I'm going to stop the recording, I think, now because we've covered most things in terms of inheritance and connecting things. And then we've discussed Practical 6 and the past paper as well. So hopefully I've given you guys a bit of a better idea on what to go through. I know someone asked about calculate credit card interest. You'll have to define your own interest. I see it talks about, wait, no. The interest is given to you. Credit card interest is 15%. Amend my previous statement. A credit card has a fixed interest. And be very careful, as credit balances will receive a 0.15% interest, and negative balances incur a 15% interest. So credit card, there's two different levels of interest. A fixed deposit account will earn a fixed interest amount. So there you'd have a fixed amount for interest. Right, I'm just having a look now at the last question. Calculate balance interest. Where's balance interest? Balance interest attribute is the balance we used on the fixed deposit. Yeah, balance interest is your balance, the interest amount you're working on. So balance interest is your balance in your fixed deposit account. Then do we calculate it every time when the person deposit or check the balance, or is it an independent event? It's an independent event. I'm assuming we're on the same question with calculating interest. Calculating interest normally occurs once a month, I think. They don't do interest daily, they do interest monthly. Okay. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording as the questions have slowly stopped.